Ma'am, those bags cost more than your monthly rent. That's the first thing Tiffany says. Not, good morning, not, can I help you? Just a sharp sentence, loud enough for two other shoppers to hear, dripping with a tone that makes it clear, Martha Johnson does not belong here. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more jaw-dropping stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to our main character. Ma'am, those bags cost more than your monthly rent. That's the first thing Tiffany says. Not, good morning, not, can I help you? Just a sharp sentence, loud enough for two other shoppers to hear, dripping with a tone that makes it clear, Martha Johnson does not belong here. The words land like a slap in the middle of the boutique. Martha, 74 years old, pauses mid-step. She isn't holding a cane, but she walks slowly, carefully, the way someone with decades of wisdom carries themselves. She doesn't flinch, doesn't snap back. Her voice is steady when she replies. I wasn't asking about rent. I was asking to see the handbag. But Tiffany laughs. A short, cutting laugh that slices through the quiet hum of the store. Sweetheart, she says, drawing out the word like it's an insult. Those handbags start at $4,000. We keep the cheaper items in the back, maybe that's more your lane. And then she turns away. Just like that. As if Martha is nothing but an interruption, a problem to be brushed aside. The silence after her words is thick. You can almost hear the disbelief in the breaths of the two women browsing by the window. One whispers to the other, did she just say that to her? Another coughs nervously, pretending not to listen, though every ear in the store is tuned in. Martha stands still, her eyes on the display case. She doesn't raise her voice, doesn't argue. She simply says, I understand. But Tiffany doesn't let it rest. She mutters to her coworker, not quietly enough, I don't know why they let people like that wander in here. It just lowers the vibe. People. Like. That. 3 words that carry 100 years of history. 3 words that scrape against Martha's dignity harder than any insult could. She hears them, every syllable, even though Tiffany thinks she's whispering. And here's the irony, what Tiffany doesn't know, what no one in that boutique realizes, is that the woman she just dismissed, is the very reason this store exists at all. Martha Johnson isn't some random shopper. She is the architect who drew the blueprints for this mall. The developer who secured the financing. The owner whose company still signs the checks that keep the lights on. But Tiffany? Tiffany only sees age. She only sees race. She only sees a modest dress and shoes that don't scream luxury. And so she throws away her chance to treat Martha like the queen she is. Now, pause for a moment and imagine this, the woman who built an empire, ignored, belittled, and told to stay in her lane, in the very space she created. If that doesn't make your blood boil, wait until you hear what happens next. Because humiliation is only the beginning. Martha turns toward the counter again, her hands folded neatly in front of her. Her voice stays calm, but there's steel underneath. I asked about that handbag, she says. The black one with the gold clasp. May I hold it? Tiffany doesn't even glance at the display. She just tilts her head and lets her voice drip with mockery. You may, but I don't think it's the right fit for you. These are reserved for serious buyers, not window shoppers. Window shoppers. The phrase drops into the room like broken glass. Sharp. Cutting. Martha doesn't move. She doesn't shout. She just lets the silence hang for a moment before answering. I believe I can decide for myself what fits me. But Tiffany is on a roll now, her voice louder, her tone brighter, as if she's performing for the other customers. Listen, ma'am, we have a clearance section in the back. Much more practical. No sense wasting time on things that don't suit you. A man near the door clears his throat. Another customer shifts uncomfortably. You can hear the shuffle of feet, the quiet murmurs. Is this really happening? Tiffany notices the tension, but instead of backing down, she smirks. She actually smirks. And then she adds the line that makes Martha's chest tighten, a line so arrogant it burns. Besides, I doubt you could even afford it. That's it. That's the moment. A 74-year-old black grandmother, who once signed checks in the millions, who has overseen entire construction crews, who has walked through boardrooms where her voice was the only female voice in the room, reduced to this. A clerk deciding she isn't worth respect because of the way she looks. Martha exhales slowly, her words quiet but firm. Young lady, I asked politely. I'll ask one more time, may I hold the handbag? Tiffany rolls her eyes so hard it's practically audible. She snatches the bag from the display, sets it down with a dramatic sigh, and says, fine. Just don't scuff it. The bag rests in Martha's hands. Leather smooth. Clasp shining under the store's bright lights. She doesn't clutch it like something fragile. She holds it steady, the way she's held contracts, blueprints, deeds, things that carry weight. For a long second, she just stands there, the bag in her hands, Tiffany glaring at her like she's a thief about to bolt for the door. And then Martha says softly, almost as if speaking to herself, you know. I remember when this mall was nothing but dirt and concrete. When the foundation was poured, I stood in the middle of it and thought, one day, people will walk these halls and feel proud to be here. Tiffany snorts. Sure you did. The dismissal is so quick, so smug, that even the other clerk behind the counter winces. A woman near the racks mutters, wow, under her breath. The tension thickens, pressing down on everyone in that boutique. And here's the thing, Martha doesn't correct her. Not yet. She just lets the insult hang in the air. Because sometimes silence is louder than a scream. But let me warn you, this isn't the end of the insult. Tiffany isn't finished humiliating her. And the next words out of her mouth? They're about to spark something that no one in that store will ever forget. Martha doesn't move. She doesn't argue. She just stands with the handbag resting gently in her hands, her fingers smoothing over the leather like she's testing not just its quality, but its meaning. Around her, the boutique hums with that strange silence, thick, nervous, expectant. Everyone is listening, but no one wants to be caught watching. Tiffany folds her arms. Well? Are you going to buy it or just stand there holding it like a prop? Her voice cuts through the air, sharp, smug, designed to embarrass. Because if not, I'm going to need it back. We don't hand these out for free. Martha's gaze doesn't flicker. She says, soft but deliberate, you remind me of a contractor I once hired. He took one look at me and decided I didn't know what I was doing. Tried to charge me double for half the work. Tiffany laughs, exaggerated, rolling her eyes at her coworker. Oh my God. You hired a contractor? What were you building, a dollhouse? Her coworker murmurs, Tiff, maybe, but Tiffany cuts her off. No, seriously. What kind of story is this? You're not fooling anyone. She leans across the counter now, her voice rising. This isn't story time, Grandma. This is a luxury boutique. Either pay up or put it back. The words strike with such force that one of the women browsing the racks gasps out loud. Another customer mutters, that's too much. A man near the door shifts uncomfortably and clears his throat, but no one steps in. The air feels charged, like something terrible is about to happen. And still, Martha refuses to raise her voice. Her calm is so steady it makes Tiffany's aggression look smaller with every second. You'd be surprised, Martha says quietly, what a grandmother can build with the right tools. Tiffany slams her palm against the counter. The sound makes everyone flinch. That's it. Hand the bag back. Right now. I don't have time for games. For the first time, Martha lifts her head and looks directly at her. Her voice is low, measured, but each word lands like a stone. It isn't a game, child. Not to me. Not when I spent years fighting to be taken seriously. Not when I stood on a site with steel beams rising above my head and men telling me I had no business there. Not when I signed checks big enough to pay for the marble under your feet. The room goes silent. Every whisper, every shuffle, every small cough stops. Tiffany blinks, startled by the sudden weight in Martha's tone, but she recovers fast. She smirks, waves a dismissive hand, and says, "Yeah, sure. Whatever makes you feel better. You sign checks. You built the mall. Right." Her laugh rings out, harsh and mocking. "Lady, you can barely hold that handbag without shaking." Martha doesn't flinch. She lets the insult hang, lets the silence sharpen again, and then replies, calm as ever, shaking doesn't mean weak. Sometimes it just means carrying too much for too long. For the first time, Tiffany's confidence falters. Just a flicker. Her smirk twitches. But she doubles down, because arrogance rarely knows when to stop. "All right, enough. I'm calling security. If you can't afford it and you're just here to waste my time, then you don't belong in this store." Those words ripple through the room like a spark catching dry grass. Don't belong. The phrase slices deeper than all the others. A voice from near the fitting rooms finally cuts through. It's a young woman, firm, indignant, she's literally just holding a bag. "Why are you treating her like this?" Another voice joins, an older man this time. "Yeah, this feels wrong. Let her shop in peace." But Tiffany spins on them, her voice sharp as glass. "Mind your own business. I know who belongs here and who doesn't." And that's when Martha does something no one expects. She sets the handbag back on the counter, very carefully, as though it's fragile. Then she folds her hands again and says, almost like she's talking to herself, "I remember the day we laid the first stone. It was July. Hot. I was 39 years old. The bank didn't want to sign the loan, but I convinced them. We poured the foundation right where you're standing." Her words are simple. Soft. But they vibrate with truth in a way that makes Tiffany's mocking laugh sound hollow. The clerk behind Tiffany shifts uncomfortably. One of the customers whispers, "Wait, what is she saying?" Another mutters, "She built this place?" Tiffany shakes her head furiously, cutting her off. "Oh, please. Stop pretending. You're wasting everyone's time. Security is already on their way." But here's the thing, even as Tiffany spits those words, the balance in the room has shifted. Every person in that boutique can feel it. Something about the old woman's voice, the certainty in her tone, makes them doubt Tiffany's sneer. And Martha? She just stands tall, her eyes calm, her presence unshaken. She doesn't need to prove herself yet. Not here. Not with Tiffany shouting in her face. She knows what's coming. Because the truth has a way of breaking through arrogance. And before this day is over, everyone in that mall, the clerks, the shoppers, the managers, even Tiffany herself, will learn exactly who Martha Johnson is. And when they do, the sound of their silence will be deafening. So listen closely, because this was only the beginning. The moment of dismissal. The spark of humiliation. The seed of a confrontation that will explode into something much bigger than a handbag in a boutique. By the end of this story, the same young clerk who sneered at Martha will be trembling, her job hanging by a thread, her arrogance shattered in front of a crowd. And the woman she underestimated? The grandmother she mocked? She will stand revealed as the power behind it all, the builder, the owner, the reason this entire mall even exists. That's the truth waiting just around the corner. And the tension that started here, in this quiet boutique at 10:02 a.m., is about to erupt into something no one will forget. Have you ever witnessed dignity being dismissed so carelessly? If this moment pulled you in, stay with me, the story is only just beginning. And don't forget to follow so you never miss stories that reveal the truth behind prejudice. Security arrives faster than anyone expects. It takes less than 3 minutes from the moment Tiffany makes her call, but those 3 minutes feel stretched thin, every second heavy with unease. Customers whisper to one another. The clerk at the register keeps her head down. Martha stands still, her hands folded, her eyes steady on Tiffany. And Tiffany? She thrives on the wait. She leans against the counter with smug satisfaction, her words sharp enough to cut the air. See? I told you. Security will sort this out. We don't have time for distractions. Martha says nothing. Silence is her shield, and it unsettles Tiffany more than an argument ever could. Then the footsteps come. 2 security guards in crisp uniforms stride into the boutique at 10:11 a.m. One tall and broad-shouldered, the other shorter but stern, both radiating authority. The taller one, Officer Harris, steps forward. Problem here? He asks. Tiffany seizes the moment like a weapon. Yes. This woman, she points at Martha with exaggerated disgust, has been harassing staff, handling merchandise she clearly can't afford, and disrupting the shopping experience for real customers. Her words land in the room like stones thrown into water, splashing everyone around her. Gasps, mutters, the shifting of feet. Martha tilts her head, her voice calm but clear. Is that what you think I've done? Tiffany folds her arms, smirking. That's exactly what you've done. The second guard, Officer Delgado, narrows his eyes. Ma'am, do you have any intention of making a purchase today? Martha doesn't blink. Perhaps. But I didn't realize browsing was forbidden. Her words are measured, each one deliberate. Customers murmur. Someone near the back whispers, she's got a point. Another replies, this is getting out of hand. But Tiffany doubles down, her tone sharp with self-righteousness. She's wasting everyone's time. She doesn't belong in this section. I was just protecting store policy. Protecting policy? Martha repeats softly, almost as if testing the weight of the phrase. Or protecting your assumptions? The silence that follows is brief but thick. The guards exchange a look. Officer Harris clears his throat. Ma'am, he says to Martha, if this is a misunderstanding, perhaps it's best you finish up and move along. Finish up. Move along. The words carry the same dismissal as Tiffany's insults, only dressed in professional tones. Martha nods once. I understand. She picks up her small purse, smooths the front of her dress, and adds quietly, though it's curious to be told to move along in a building I once prayed would welcome everyone. The customers hear it. They react. A woman near the racks frowns and whispers, wait, what did she just say? Another mutters, this is starting to sound bigger than it looks. But Tiffany laughs again, too loud, too cruel. There she goes with her fairy tales again. She built the mall, sure. Next she'll tell us she owns the whole city. The guards don't laugh, but neither do they stop her. They just stand there, letting Tiffany's voice echo. And every echo digs the humiliation deeper. Martha takes a slow breath. Her voice stays even, though it carries a quiet force now. Young lady, when I was your age, I was signing contracts for projects larger than this entire store. I don't need to convince you. Time will do that for me. Tiffany scoffs, rolling her eyes dramatically. Sure. Contracts. Construction. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Meanwhile, we have work to do. She turns to the guards. Can you please escort her out before she embarrasses herself any further? That's when the murmurs in the store grow louder. A man speaks up this time, his voice firm. Why? She hasn't done anything wrong. Another adds, yeah, this feels like harassment. She's just a customer. The tension tightens. Tiffany snaps at them. You don't know the whole story. I do. I'm the one running this floor. But the cracks are showing. The arrogance that once sounded like authority now sounds defensive. Martha, still calm, says quietly, you're running this floor, yes. But don't forget who built the ground you're standing on. It's the second time she said it. The second hint. The whispers spread faster now. People repeat her words in hushed voices, she built the ground, she built them all. The guards hesitate. Tiffany senses her grip slipping and grows more desperate. Her voice sharpens, louder now, almost shrill. Why are you all listening to her? She's just making things up. Look at her, does she look like someone who owns anything? Her words hang in the air like poison. Martha finally lifts her head fully. Her eyes meet Tiffany's, and though her voice doesn't rise, it carries an unmistakable weight. Tell me, child. What does someone who owns something look like? Old? Black? Female? Modest in dress? Is that what you see? Because what I see is arrogance hiding behind a counter. The silence after those words is thick. A collective intake of breath. Even Tiffany falters, if only for a second. And then, from the entrance of the store, another voice cuts in. This one firm, clipped, professional. What's going on here? It's the store manager, Ms. Caldwell. Mid-40s, hair tied back neatly, clipboard in hand. She strides in, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The energy in the room shifts instantly. Tiffany straightens like a schoolgirl caught misbehaving. Ms. Caldwell, thank goodness you're here. This woman has been causing a scene, disrupting customers, touching merchandise she has no intention of buying. But the manager holds up a hand, silencing her. That's enough, Tiffany. The entire store quiets. Even the guards step back. Ms. Caldwell turns to Martha, her voice softer, more measured. Ma'am, I apologize if there's been any misunderstanding. May I ask your name? Martha studies her for a moment. Then she answers, Martha Johnson. The name means nothing to Tiffany. She smirks, folding her arms again. But a few customers react, subtle gasps, a whisper, Johnson? As in Johnson Estates? Another, wait, no way. The seeds are sprouting. Ms. Caldwell blinks, her composure faltering just slightly. Johnson, she murmurs. Then, more firmly, I see. Ms. Johnson, perhaps we can step into the office and clear this up privately? But Tiffany explodes, her voice sharp, defensive. Why does she get special treatment? She's lying, Ms. Caldwell. Don't fall for her act. She doesn't belong here. And there it is again. That phrase. Doesn't belong. Martha folds her hands, her voice calm but cutting. Child, I've belonged here since before you were born. And soon enough, you'll find out just how much. The murmurs rise. Customers whisper her name now like it's a rumor spreading through the air. Martha Johnson. Johnson Estates, could it be her? Tiffany's face flushes red. She slams her hands on the counter again. This is ridiculous. Why is everyone listening to her? She's just some old woman making up stories. But the tide is shifting. The guards hesitate. The manager studies Martha more closely. The customers lean in, whispering, questioning. And Martha? She stands steady in the storm, knowing the moment of truth is drawing near. Because humiliation can only stretch so far before it snaps back. And when it does, it doesn't just sting, it shatters. The rising tension in that boutique is about to spill over into something none of them are ready for. And Tiffany, so certain of her power, is about to learn the cost of underestimating the wrong woman. Did you hear how far humiliation can go when nobody steps in? If this part shook you, share it with someone who needs to understand what silence costs. And drop your thoughts, whose side would you have stood on? The silence in the boutique is sharp, cutting, almost painful. You can hear it in the way no one dares clear their throat, in the way the air feels as though it's pressing down on every shoulder in that store. Tiffany is standing there, arms crossed, smirk glued onto her face, convinced she has won this battle. She believes she has put Martha in her place, just another poor old woman who doesn't belong among silk dresses and polished marble counters. But Martha does not move. She does not leave. Her voice rises, steady and clear, even against that suffocating silence. You've made a terrible mistake, she says. The words don't come out like a threat. They come out like a statement of fact, as calm as reading the time of day. That's what makes them land heavier than anything Tiffany has ever heard. Tiffany scoffs. Mistake? No. You're in the wrong store. These dresses, she gestures to the glittering racks, aren't for people like you. There's a ripple in the air, a sharp intake of breath from someone near the door. People know what they've just heard. They know what Tiffany has just implied, and no one can believe she had the audacity to say it out loud. Phones are in hands now. Someone whispers, "Did she just say that?" Another voice hisses, "Keep recording." Martha tilts her head, as if studying Tiffany the way a teacher studies a student who hasn't done their homework. "Do you know where you are standing right now?" she asks. Tiffany frowns. "Yes. In a store where you clearly can't afford anything." "No," Martha replies. "You are standing in a mall I built. A mall I financed. A mall I still own to this day." The air splits. That sentence doesn't sound like fiction. It doesn't sound like a bluff. It sounds like history spoken aloud. But Tiffany laughs. She throws her head back like this is the funniest joke she has ever heard. "You," she sneers. "You built this place? That's ridiculous." Her laughter dies when Martha reaches into her purse. Slowly, deliberately, with the patience of someone who has lived through decades of underestimation, she pulls out a leather folder. She opens it and begins to read. Martha Johnson. Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Johnson Estates Development. Licensed architect. Licensed real estate developer. Graduate of Howard University, class of 1971. Master's degree in urban planning, Columbia University, 1974. She pauses, her voice unwavering. In 1983, I purchased 120 acres of farmland on this very site. In 1987, I secured financing worth $35 million. In 1991, I cut the ribbon that opened this shopping mall. And 32 years later, I still sign the checks that keep its lights on. The silence is no longer heavy, it's electric. A current running through every witness standing in that boutique. People aren't just listening, they are being schooled, reminded that behind every assumption lies a truth they never even thought to imagine. Tiffany's lips part, but no sound comes out. She has no script for this. Martha continues, her voice not raised, but filling every corner of that space. I was underestimated when I walked into banks. I was dismissed when I pitched this project. I was told, again and again, that a black woman could never build something on this scale. Yet here you stand, working under my roof, cashing a paycheck because I refuse to believe those lies. Someone murmurs, "My God," another whispers, "This is unbelievable." Tiffany finally finds her voice, but it's trembling now, stripped of the arrogance it had only minutes earlier. You can't be serious. You don't own all of this." Martha lifts her chin. "Do you want proof?" And as if the universe itself has decided to cooperate, there's a commotion at the entrance of the boutique. A mall manager, flanked by security, hurries inside. He's holding a black folder, and the sight of Martha stops him cold. "Mrs. Johnson," he says, voice almost cracking. "We weren't expecting you until the unveiling later this afternoon." Every head turns. Phones lift higher, recording every syllable. Tiffany is frozen. The manager clears his throat and continues, "The plaque is ready. It's been mounted in the main atrium. We were just about to cover it before the ceremony." Martha nods. "Then uncover it." The manager hesitates. Now, Martha says. The authority in her voice leaves no room for delay. He signals to security, and within minutes, a small crowd is streaming toward the atrium. Every step is a soundtrack of whispered speculation, the shuffle of hurried feet, the ping of text messages being sent, the faint chiming of social media notifications going off in real time. And then it happens. The cloth covering the plaque is pulled away. The words are read aloud by the crowd, echoing across the polished floors of the mall itself. In honor of Martha Johnson, whose vision, courage, and dedication brought this community together. Founder and developer of the Johnson Estates Shopping Mall, 1991. The gasp that follows is like a wave. People aren't just whispering anymore, they're exclaiming. Some are clapping. Others are shouting Martha's name. And Tiffany? She's trembling in the back, realizing her words, her disdain, have been carved against the truth of a legacy too large to ignore. Martha turns back to her. Her voice is soft now, but still sharp enough to cut. Do not ever tell a woman where she doesn't belong. Do not ever tell a black woman what she cannot afford. Because one day, you may find yourself standing on ground she built with her own hands. There's no rebuttal. No excuse. Tiffany's mouth opens, then closes again. Her arrogance has drained completely, leaving nothing but fear. Martha turns to the crowd. And for every person who has ever been dismissed because of their age, their color, or their appearance, remember this moment. Remember that truth will outlast prejudice. Every single time. The applause that follows is thunderous. It drowns out the boutique. It drowns out Tiffany's silence. It fills the mall Martha built. And in that moment, the reveal is complete. The old woman nobody thought twice about is recognized, finally, as the architect of it all. But this story is not over. Because with every truth revealed comes consequence. And those consequences are about to shake more than one person's world. Imagine standing in a mall and discovering the very ground beneath you was built by the woman you just dismissed. If this reveal gave you chills, share it forward, let someone else feel that moment of truth. The applause in the atrium doesn't fade quickly. It lingers, clapping hands turning into chants of Martha's name, voices rising in celebration, disbelief, awe. People who only minutes ago were strangers are leaning toward one another, whispering, "Did you hear that? She built this place." Someone shouts, "Martha Johnson forever," and the crowd picks it up like a rhythm, a chant that fills the mall itself. But not everyone is celebrating. Tiffany is still in the boutique doorway, pale, silent, her body stiff like stone. The smirk she wore earlier has collapsed into something else entirely, panic. She's realizing, in real time, that the floor beneath her career has cracked open. Martha does not even look at her again. She turns to the mall manager instead. Her words are clipped, deliberate. "I want a report," she says. "How many complaints have been filed against that store in the past year?" The manager swallows hard. 47, Mrs. Johnson. 47 complaints in 12 months. The crowd reacts. A wave of whispers surges through them like static. 47? That many? And they never did anything? Phones are buzzing again, fingers flying over screens, messages being typed and sent. Martha's response is steady. "Read them out loud." The manager hesitates. "Here." "Yes," Martha says. "Here. In front of everyone." So he opens the folder in his hands and begins. His voice is nervous at first, but it grows stronger with each complaint. Complaint filed January 14, 10:32 a.m. Customer alleges clerk ignored her presence for 17 minutes while assisting other shoppers. Complaint filed February 3, 2:47 p.m. Customer reports being told, and I quote, "This isn't the store for your kind." Complaint filed March 22, 11:09 a.m. Customer alleges clerk refused to unlock dressing room doors. On and on it goes. Complaint after complaint, each one stacking higher, heavier. The crowd grows restless, angry. Gasps punctuate the list, followed by sharp mutters of disgust. Someone calls out, "How did she keep her job?" Another adds, "This is systemic. This isn't just her, it's culture." By the time the manager reads the 47th complaint, Tiffany is trembling. She tries to speak, her voice cracking. Those weren't all me. That's not fair. You can't just." But Martha interrupts. "I don't have to. The record speaks for itself." And it does. The silence that follows is damning. Then, almost as if on cue, a phone rings. Loud, insistent. The mall manager fumbles to silence it, but Martha lifts a hand. "Answer," she says. He does. And the voice on the other end is frantic, so loud everyone can hear pieces of it. "What's happening in the atrium? Why are we trending online? Do you realize we're on 3 different news feeds right now?" The manager stammers, "It's Mrs. Johnson. She revealed herself. People are recording everything. It's everywhere already." The voice snaps back, "Get Tiffany out of there. Now. Damage control, immediately." The crowd hears it. They erupt. "Damage control? That's all you care about," someone shouts. Phones capture every word, every reaction. Martha doesn't flinch. She says, "Leave her where she stands. Let her face what she has created." And Tiffany does face it. Not just Martha, not just the crowd, but the wider world beyond those atrium walls. Because by now, the story has escaped the mall. Videos are flooding social media, clips of Tiffany sneering, clips of Martha listing her credentials, clips of the plaque being unveiled. Notifications chime everywhere. Breaking, elderly black woman revealed as founder of Johnson Estates Mall after being discriminated against in boutique. Video goes viral, store clerk caught ignoring mall's owner. By 2:18 p.m., the hashtag Martha Johnson is trending. By 2:46, it's on local news stations. By 3:07, it hits national outlets. And the comments? They are brutal. One voice reads aloud as if scrolling, 47 complaints and no one did anything. Fire her now. Another, Tiffany didn't just disrespect a customer. She disrespected history. Another, imagine building a mall and then being told you don't belong in it. Each comment is sharper than the last, and Tiffany hears them echo like a gavel striking over and over again. But Martha doesn't stop at public shame. She is not here for spectacle. She is here for accountability. She signals to the manager again. "Bring me the district representative for this store," she says. Within minutes, a man in a pressed suit rushes in, his tie slightly loosened, panic etched into every syllable. "Mrs. Johnson, I had no idea you were." She cuts him off. "Save it. Tell me why you ignored 47 complaints." He stammers. We handled them internally." "No," Martha says. "You buried them. Say it. You buried them because you thought the people filing them didn't matter. Because you assumed their voices wouldn't reach beyond these walls." The man tries again, "Mrs. Johnson, we can fix this, we can." But Martha lifts her hand, stopping him. This is not about fixing public image. This is about fixing culture. Effective immediately, this store is suspended from operation until a full investigation is complete. And if your corporation cannot implement reforms, you will no longer have the privilege of leasing space in my mall. The crowd erupts into applause again. It is thunderous, a chorus of approval that shakes the atrium harder than the initial reveal. Tiffany's face crumples. The district rep looks like he might faint. And still, Martha continues. "Every employee deserves training rooted in respect. Every complaint must be logged and reviewed publicly. And every person who walks into this mall deserves to be treated as if they belong, because they do." Her words travel beyond the walls. By evening, they are quoted on national broadcasts. By night, they are replayed on international feeds. Tiffany is fired before sundown. The corporate office releases a statement, stiff and apologetic, announcing a commitment to diversity and inclusion training and a zero-tolerance policy moving forward. But for once, the world doesn't let it stop at empty promises. Journalists dig. They find a pattern, similar complaints at other branches, ignored for years. News anchors read them aloud, listing dates and times, making it impossible to hide. And through it all, Martha remains steady. She isn't gloating. She isn't cruel. She is simply unyielding, the same way she was when she built the mall decades earlier. She knows the stakes are bigger than Tiffany. They are about every person who has been silenced, dismissed, or turned away because of prejudice disguised as customer service. 3 weeks later, the consequences stretch even further. The parent company issues a sweeping reform plan. Complaints will now be reviewed by independent auditors. Staff will undergo mandatory equity training. Store managers will be held personally accountable for discrimination. And at the center of every article, every segment, every reform announcement, one name keeps surfacing: Martha Johnson. 6 weeks after the incident, the mall holds a second ceremony. Not for a plaque, but for a scholarship fund. The Martha Johnson Fellowship for Women in Architecture and Urban Planning. Funded jointly by the mall and by donations pouring in from across the country, it awards 10 students every year, supporting the next generation of builders. When Martha speaks at the ceremony, her voice is steady, as it has always been. This mall was built on vision, but also on resistance. Resistance against those who told me no. Resistance against a world that wanted me to shrink. Let this scholarship remind every young woman, every person of color, every underestimated soul, that no one decides your worth but you. The crowd rises to their feet, clapping, cheering. Reporters record every word. Online comments flood again, but this time with admiration, gratitude, inspiration. And Tiffany? Her name has become a cautionary tale, a whispered warning passed around corporate training rooms and HR workshops. She disappears from public life, her arrogance replaced by infamy. The store itself reopens months later, under new management, with posters in its windows declaring, respect, dignity, belonging. Customers step inside with new eyes, aware that behind every transaction lies the weight of history. Because the truth is, Tiffany didn't just lose her job. She became the symbol of what happens when arrogance collides with legacy, when prejudice smashes against truth too big to be hidden. And Martha? She walks the mall freely now, her cane clicking softly against the polished floor, greeted by name, greeted with reverence. People stop her, thank her, hug her. She never asked for recognition, but she accepts it with the same dignity she has always carried. Consequences have unfolded. Justice has been served. And the story that began with a sneer has ended with a legacy cemented in stone and in hearts. But this is not the end. Because stories like Martha's ripple forward. And 6 months later, the world looks different still. You just heard how one act of arrogance rippled into corporate reform and national headlines. If you believe accountability matters, let this story travel. Comment with one word: respect. 6 months have passed since that day in the atrium. 6 months since Tiffany's sneer shattered against Martha's truth, since a plaque was unveiled and a story the world almost forgot roared back into the spotlight. The mall feels different now. You can hear it in the footsteps of shoppers who walk without hesitation, in the conversations that echo across its marble floors. People speak Martha's name as if it belongs not only to history but to the present, to the air they breathe when they enter this place. And Martha? She is not hiding in the shadows of her legacy anymore. She is walking its halls with pride. At 81 years old, cane in hand, she moves with the calm dignity she always has. Store clerks greet her by name now. Strangers stop her to say thank you. Children point to the plaque in the atrium and whisper, "That's her, Mama. That's the lady who built the mall." But Martha doesn't linger in flattery. She focuses on the work. Because the consequences of that day didn't end with Tiffany's dismissal. They sparked reforms that spread outward like ripples in a pond. Within weeks, the corporate chain behind the boutique announced sweeping changes. Independent review boards now audit customer complaints. Quarterly reports are made public, with numbers read aloud at shareholder meetings. Training programs, once treated as corporate afterthoughts, are now mandatory, comprehensive, and ongoing. And those weren't just promises on paper. 6 months in, statistics are already shifting. Complaints of discrimination across the company's branches have dropped by 41%. Customer satisfaction scores have risen by 28%. For the first time in years, headlines about the chain are positive, centered on reform instead of scandal. Other companies noticed. They couldn't ignore the virality of Martha's story. Competing retailers began announcing their own policies, trying to match the accountability suddenly demanded by the public. Within months, an entire sector was shifting, not because executives wanted to, but because one elderly black woman refused to leave a store quietly. Martha has watched it all unfold with the same patience she carried for decades. But she has also acted. The scholarship fund created in her name is now in full swing. 10 young women received their first awards in a ceremony held just weeks ago. Some of them will be architects. Some will be developers. All of them carry her name on their journey forward. And Martha stood on that stage, cane in one hand, microphone in the other, telling them, "I am not passing a torch. I am proving the fire was always yours." Her words have been replayed thousands of times. They've inspired students far beyond the fellowship, students who may never meet her but now know her story by heart. The mall itself carries a new atmosphere. Shoppers say it feels safer, warmer, as if the very foundation is different. Maybe it is. Because people now understand that it was never just a collection of stores. It was the vision of a woman who refused to accept no, who turned prejudice into architecture, concrete, and community. And what of Tiffany? Her name still circulates online, but the firestorm has died down. She disappeared after the scandal, retreating from public life. Last anyone heard, she was working in a small shop far from the glare of social media. But her name lingers, not as a trending topic anymore, but as a cautionary tale, whispered in training sessions, cited in corporate lectures, remembered as the cost of arrogance. Martha doesn't gloat over that. She never did. When asked about Tiffany in interviews, she always responds the same way: "I don't hold grudges. I hold lessons." It is a sentence that has already been quoted in books, on podcasts, in classrooms. Because that is Martha's power. She doesn't just build structures. She builds words, legacies, lessons that outlast the moment. 6 months later, the mall holds another gathering in the atrium. Not for scandal. Not for damage control. For celebration. This time, it is the community itself that organizes it, a thank you to Martha Johnson. Hundreds gather. Voices chant her name, not out of shock or disbelief this time, but out of gratitude. And as she takes the microphone, leaning on her cane but standing tall, her words cut through the air one last time. 6 months ago, I was ignored in my own house. But I was not silent. I have lived long enough to know that silence never protects us. Speaking does. Acting does. Building does. If you take nothing else from my story, take this: your worth is not decided by someone else's glance. Your dignity is not handed to you, it is yours from the moment you draw breath. And if anyone dares tell you otherwise, stand firm. Stand tall. And let them know, you belong exactly where you are. The crowd responds with thunderous applause, voices rising in agreement. Some are crying. Some are chanting. But all are changed, because they have heard a truth too powerful to forget. That day, the applause doesn't fade quickly. It lingers. It carries. It follows Martha as she leaves the atrium, cane clicking against the floor she once dreamed of, then built, then fought to reclaim. And somewhere, beyond the walls of the mall, a young woman listens to the story online. She straightens her shoulders. She lifts her head. And she whispers to herself, if she did it, so can I. That is Martha Johnson's legacy. Not the plaque, not the scholarship, not even the mall itself. Her legacy is the echo she leaves in the lives of those who hear her story and choose, from that moment on, never again to shrink. Because what began with a sneer ended with a movement. And a grandmother, underestimated and ignored, reminded the world of something they should never have forgotten. Respect is not a gift. Dignity is not a favor. And truth, once spoken, cannot be silenced. If this story inspired you, subscribe for more and share it with someone who needs to be reminded, dignity is not handed to us, it's ours.